Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Boots on the Ground. Today's class is on Protesting 101, Ways to Protest. This will be the first in a series of classes on different avenues of protest. So we're going to start with our mission statement. Next slide, Mako. Boots on the Ground was created to bring all members of the leather, fetish, and kink communities together to fight against the tyranny and oppression taking over the United States. We will fight so that we retain our inalienable rights given to us by the U.S. Constitution. We will educate ourselves to know how our democracy works. We will make calls, attend commission meetings, protest, march, create connection, and build community. Democracy will not die while we watch. We will fight and we will win. Mako, could you please spotlight Will for me? Next slide, Mako. We are going to do a land acknowledgement. Boots on the Ground recognizes that we reside on lands once inhabited and held sacred by the first peoples. For nearly 10,000 years, indigenous groups lived in South Florida. The Tequesta, Miccosukee, Seminole, Muskogee, and Taino peoples once lived in what we call Broward County, where we're holding our meeting. These distinct indigenous communities were among many others in South Florida considered ancestors of the present-day federally recognized Seminole Tribe of Florida and Miccosukee Tribe of Indians of Florida. I encourage all to learn about the significance of the early inhabitants. With a collective knowledge of the past, we are inspired to teach, to live, and support a future that empowers all individuals. Next slide. All right, if you are interested in getting news that you can easily digest without looking at the tons of bad and good news that's out there, I do a weekly newsletter called Lace Up and Learn. Mako, if you could put that in the chat, I would appreciate it. Lace Up and Learn gives you small digestible bits of information on all the week's top stories. It goes out Sunday. It just went out this morning. I hope you find it useful. Next slide. All right, now we're on to the class, Protesting 101, Ways to Protest. And the little thing says, they tried to bury us. They didn't know we were seeds. Next slide. Actually, before I get to the next slide, I want to take a moment to thank the people that help and that are part of the support staff of Boots on the Ground. I don't do this alone. I do this with a lot of people that help me. I would like to thank Here in the Eagle, Will and Sylvie for handling the Zoom. Mako on the Zoom itself, doing the Zoom. And if you have not followed Mako on FetLife, go do it, because he has a great app called WeMinder, specifically made for dominants and submissives, M-types or D-types and S-types. So if you are interested, go follow Mako. I would also like to thank Chuck and Greg, who are the owners of the Eagle Wilton Manors, for giving us this space to meet. And then John, or Big John as people know him, of House JBX for hosting our website for free. Thank you, John. And then Allie. Allie is the one behind the scenes that does all the graphics for me. She did the logo, our ads every month. So I don't want you to think I'm doing this all by myself. It takes a village. And this is my village. And thank you, each and every one of you. All right, now we're going to start with the class. So in 1776, Thomas Paine said, well, to paraphrase, these are the tribes that try people's souls. It is absolutely true in 1776 and today. We see what is happening, and we are rising up with our whole being to fight because we need to as Americans. And if you've been to a boots on the ground class before, you know I've said about the 3.5% rule that no authoritarian regime in world history has been able to withstand 3.5% of the population rising up in protest. At the big protests like the No Kings and the Hands Off protests, we've gotten about 5 to 6 million people, which is a good start, really good start, because you know what? 11 to 12 million is our 3.5%. So we are halfway there. So let's hear it for the people that are doing the work. And if you're not yet, don't worry. We're going to tell you how to get into it. Now, we're going to start with a little icebreaker. What does democracy mean to you? If you're on Zoom, feel free to put it in the chat. If you're here in the Eagle, feel free to shout it out. What does democracy mean to you? Does anybody have any ideas? Because we're going to get to the definition, but I want to talk about what your heart and soul feel. Yes?
The right to vote.
The right to vote. That is definitely a part of democracy, is free and fair elections. Anybody else have any question or any comments about what democracy means to you? Yes?
Democracy to me is how people come together to solve their problems and to decide on a collective goal about how their society wants to work.
So democracy to her is people coming together to solve their problems and how to go about that. So
we have one in the chat from one of our guests, and it says, democracy means to me that people who are part of the society actually have a say. Elections and actions are encouraged.
That's a great one. So democracy is where people actually have a say, and elections and actions, or I can't remember, elections are encouraged and speaking out. Those are all, do we have any more, Will?
That's from Ryder. We have another one. It says freedom to make your own individual choices.
Freedom to make your own individual choices. The right for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Absolutely. These are all great. So thank you. Thank you for everybody that participated. So, and I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again because it's one of my favorite quotes, especially when we're talking about protesting. Democracy doesn't come from Washington. It comes to Washington. Senator Cory Booker said that. And that is absolutely the case. We need to take the change to Washington, because if we wait for them, we're going to keep waiting.
We have one last comment here.
Yes.
It says that democracy means having the freedom to disagree with your government and work for change.
That's a great one. Democracy means being free to disagree with your government and affecting change. From Mako. Good one, Mako. All right, next slide, please. All right, now we're going to talk about why are we protesting, you know? What are those things that we're protesting for and protesting against? So democracy, we've talked a little bit about people in this room of what democracy means to them and the people on Zoom. The definition is government for all the people, by all the people, constrained by constitutional checks and balances to prevent excessive power. Now, we have what's known as a representative democracy, where we elect representatives to vote for us. Authoritarianism, unfortunately, is what our country is slipping into. Authoritarianism is concentration of power in a small, unaccountable group, maintained through repression, emotional appeals, suppression of opposition, and vague, overextended executive power. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Yes, I'm sure if you follow the news, it does. So what's been happening this last 6 months since Trump got sworn in is called authoritarian breakthrough. That's when an authoritarian regime has a short window for a would-be authoritarian dictator or regime. They attempt to rapidly consolidate power, eliminate checks on their power, and operate with impunity. This has been the last 6 months. Luckily for us, because of our system of checks and balances, the courts are stopping him time and time and time again. And you don't hear about those wins, but I read about them. I try to get them out to you. When we have a big win, I try to let you know, because we got to celebrate the wins, because they are out there. Unfortunately, what's also happening because of this authoritarian breakthrough, we are also having democratic backsliding. When a democracy shifts towards authoritarianism under a demagogue or a cult leader and their allies. And that's what's happening, is that backsliding is going on right now. So let's talk about let's go to the next slide, actually. Now, I got this from the 1 Million Rising training or the ACLU training. I can't remember. I'm on a lot of trainings, but this is the pillars of support for an authoritarian regime. And these are the things that hold up the regime. So they include things like businesses, labor and workers, faith institutions, churches, synagogues, mosques, educational institutions, universities, media, civil service, the military and police, as well as many more. Now, each of these pillars, let's go to the next slide. Each of these pillars is made up of different parts. So at the center or the top, depending on your organizational chart, of every pillar of support is your CEO, your head of, your head of agency, whatever it is. Then you're going down to the managers, those people that report directly to the CEO. Underneath that are the workers, which most of us fall into the working class. And from there, it's the consumer, whether through social services provided by the government or your technical consumer provided by, is the Zoom stopped? Okay. So the consumer is the end result of businesses or civil service or the military and police protecting you. Those are the consumers, and all of us fall into the consumer category as well. So think about this. Of the four makeups of each pillar, all of us belong to a worker, well, most of us belong to the worker class and the consumer class. So we have much more power because there are many more of us than there are managers and CEOs. So keep that in mind as we keep talking, okay? Now, we can disrupt these pillars by changing the incentive for any of these layers. How do we do that? We protest. And we're going to talk about the ways to protest to disrupt these pillars of support for the authoritarian regime. All right, next slide, please. Now I'm going to read this. It's a little bit long, but I feel it's important. By themselves, rulers cannot collect taxes, enforce repressive laws and regulations, keep trains running on time, prepare national budgets, direct traffic, manage ports, print money, repair roads, keep markets supplied with food, make steel, build rockets, train the police and army, issue postage stamps, or even milk a cow. People provide these services to the ruler through a variety of organizations and institutions, the ones we talked about. If people would stop providing these skills, the ruler could not rule. And that's where disruption and delegitimizing the ruler comes into play. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Gene Sharp said that quote for those who are interested. All right, next slide, please. And this is slide 11, Mako. Excuse me. Now, authoritarian tactics, and I know I'm going to see a lot of head nods when I talk about these, because if you've been paying attention, the Trump regime is using every single one of these. Divide and conquer by villainizing groups, Black people, trans people, immigrants. And we're going to find out what the next one will be, because what they're trying to do is divide us and along all these lines and make them villains to not only their base but to each other. We've got to work across the organization to help people build coalitions and build people power. They sow confusion and provoke opposition violence to justify abuses. An example of this, when Trump sent the National Guard and Marines to LA over nothing, that was an example of trying to provoke violence. He wants us to get violent because that will provoke a violent response. And we have to remain nonviolent for this very reason. We cannot give him an excuse to unleash military personnel against the citizens of the United States, because they're supposed to not be policing. They're policing right now. It is not their job. They were not trained for that. They use regulatory retaliations. Tariffs, anybody? Investigate critics. John Bolton, Trump's national security advisor, former national security advisor, his house just got raided Friday by the FBI, but Trump said, oh, I know nothing about that. Yeah, right. John Bolton wrote a tell-all book about Trump. And maybe that might be one of the reasons his house got raided for classified documents. Pardoning lawbreakers, the January 6th insurrectionists, even the ones that hurt and killed police officers were pardoned. And overreach with federal law enforcement. And an example of this, of course, is putting Washington, D.C. under federal control. It is his dress rehearsal for doing this in other cities. He's already started threatening Chicago. And J.B. Pritzker, Illinois' governor, said, we have not asked, we don't want them, and we are saying it here and now. But he's going to try. And thank God and he's trying, and guess what? Cities with large Black populations. Remember our class on the Black Civil Rights Movement? Yeah, racism, systemic racism. All right, next slide, please. Oh, actually, hold on. I did want to say one more thing on this slide. Civil resistance increases the chance of stopping Democratic backsliding from about 7.5% up to 51.7%. So it's extraordinarily important to protest, because your protest can and does make a difference. All right. Yes.
So in the chat, we have a person that saying that in June of 23, they attended the Pride Parade with someone who deceived them into attempting to hold a bag with a gun and several magazines with ammunition. There was an attempt.
It was an attempt to
hold a bag with a gun and several magazines of ammunition. There was an attempt to have me hold the bag of weapons.
Let's stop right there. I understand. Somebody tried to get you to be a fall guy and then to do violence. We are going to talk about that in the Protesting 201 class, taking it to the streets. That's going to be covered in a future class. Today, we're just talking about ways to protest, but thank you for sharing. All right. Now we're going to go to the next slide, Mako, slide 12. Now I'm going to give you some inspiration from voices from the past. I just watched a fantastic movie. It was in German. It's called Sophie Scholl. Sophie Scholl was part of the anti-Nazi resistance movement in Munich, Germany during World War II. It was called the White Rose. And as an aside, I actually managed a shopping center for a friend of mine who was Jewish, and he named it the White Rose Shopping Center after Sophie Scholl's group. Well, she said she was actually, her and her brother, as well as I think about 15 other people, were executed for handing out leaflets that were critical to Adolf Hitler. They were executed by beheading. Think about that. And what Sophie Scholl said was, what does my death matter if, through us, thousands are stirred to action? I'm not asking you to die. I'm not asking you to put yourself in danger. If you don't feel safe protesting on the streets, there are a lot of different ways you can do it. And we're going to talk about them today. All I'm asking is that you get involved, you educate yourself, and you vote. Gandhi, one of the things I love about Gandhi is his passive resistance. He created that as a protest tactic. One of the other things I love, and I love this so much, he stopped paying his taxes as a protest. So if you want to protest in a way that, I mean, he's cut so many IRS agents, who's going to audit you? You can stop paying your taxes if that is your way to protest. Now we're going to talk about art's role in protest. Artist Shamisa Hassani said, art cannot change anything directly. Art can only change people's minds. So what we're going to talk about now is protest art. And I brought a few examples to show you today. Some of these, like this one, Putin Stooges, that I got. Here we go. This was given to me at a protest, and I loved it. And she even brought it on cardboard. I didn't even have to put it on cardboard. And I took this to protest every month until Elon Musk was out of government. Another one I got at a protest, somebody made this beautiful thing about Alligator Alcatraz, which has 60 days to close, if you hadn't heard. They're going to appeal, but we're going to keep protesting. All right. And then these are some homemade signs I've made. I did a car caravan up past Mar-a-Lago, and I made drag queens over MAGA kings. So this was one that was especially well received. And then probably my favorite and my least favorite sign is this one, which says Fox News brainwashed my dad. It's my favorite because it gets the most honks, the most comments. It's my least favorite because they have brainwashed my dad. So what I want to ask of the people on Zoom and here at the Eagle, what are some creative protest slogans you can think of, or creative signs or things to wear? I see at most protests, I see handmaids with the red capes and the white hoods. I see them quite a bit. It is a very popular protesting outfit. Does anybody have any ideas of what could be for a protest? I'll give it a minute because I need a drink.
We have a comment that Gavin Newsom, who's the governor of
California,
is doing X and blue sky as a form of protest art. He's been mimicking Trump style. Thank you for your attention to this match.
Yes. So one of the Zoom commenters said Gavin Newsom is doing an excellent job of trolling Trump. He is doing these social media posts, all in caps like Trump does, and mocking him horribly. And one of the best ways to get back at an authoritarian dictator is to satirize them and mock them and make fun of them, especially Trump. We know little baby hands has got a very thin skin. And South Park with the small penis Satan thing, I mean, mwah, excellent. Talk about protest art. South Park is a masterclass in protest art. So anybody else?
We have a comment from Ryder. It says, using any MAGA slogan that they used against Biden and anyone turning against them is always good. Example, quote, I did that, unquote, in Trump's image like their Biden was. Or Newsom replicating Trump and forcing the legacy media to acknowledge that what he does is insane.
So using MAGA slogans against them. One of my favorites is a little boy, probably 8 or 9, was wearing a red hat and it said, "Make America Gay Again." Not great. And he would see people and they'd be, and then they'd see the hat and they'd be like, ah. because they got the joke and they saw it was a joke on what MAGA represents. And I am not, and I will say this later as well, I am not going to diss on MAGA people. I am dissing on their ideas and their beliefs because I believe they were brainwashed. Because there's no way a sane and rational person would vote against their own best interests if they weren't brainwashed. And our job is to accept them and welcome them when they wake up and realize what has happened to our democracy. All right, let's move on. Next slide, please. Oh, that's the activity. So next slide, the practical ways to protest, slide 14, Mako. All right, we're going to spend a little bit of time on this slide because this is the meat and potatoes of the class. So when you think of protests, for me, the first thing that comes to mind is protesting out in the streets. Rallies, marches, standing on street corners, honking horns, sit-ins, and then things like educational meetings like this. This is a form of protest. You are educating yourselves. And those are all things we think of, but that's not the only way to protest, okay? One of the things I want to talk about is Mobilize US is an app. It's also a website where most protest organizers use this to organize and mobilize their followers. They also get counts. It's important if you're going to a protest, try to RSVP for it because there are organizations that keep counts of these protests. There are counters that are at different protests getting estimates so that we can understand how big these protests are getting. That's where I get these 5-6 million protester numbers. There are people doing that work. Access Indivisible. Indivisible has got a protest or an Indivisible group in your backyard. I can almost guarantee it. And if not, start one. You can. They are a great resource. The one in Broward County here is Hope in Action Indivisible. I belong to Indivisible Boca Raton and Indivisible South Palm Beach County. There's also an Indivisible Palm Beach County, and there's also, I think, 3 in Miami. So there are indivisible groups everywhere. If you want to get involved and you're not sure how to get involved, look up the Indivisible website. I think it's rise.up, and go find an Indivisible group near you. One of the other great things that Indivisible does is they do a 1 million rising training. They just did their first 3 sessions. It's a 3-session course, and it teaches you how to get a group of your friends and family together to talk about these issues and maybe get them mobilized. They have them all on YouTube, so if you didn't get a go, feel free to go on YouTube and watch them. Great information, and I got some of the information here from those trainings. All right, now, I know some people mentioned, since we're talking about in-person, I know I don't have to ask in this group if you know what these are. So, all right, can somebody tell me what these are? Maybe a gas mask? And 2, an Israeli gas mask. This is a standard issue. It's a firefighter's gas mask. Now, when we get to protesting 201, taking it to the streets, we're going to talk about actually using our kink gear at protests. However, I'm going to tell you this now. If you don't have the little filter that screws in right here and right here, thank you, Will, it's not going to do you any good, and the gas is just going to get in your mask and choke you, okay? You have to have a filter that is not expired. You can get them at usually Army Navy stores if you're looking for one. All righty. Next, our next protest method, contacting your representatives. I know if you've been with me before, you've heard me mention the app 5 Calls, which is an app that lets you call your senators and representatives directly from the app. It gives you a script, and if you don't like talking to people, call after hours and leave a message. You know why? It becomes public record. They have to record it, they have to note it down, and they have to know what side you're on. this is also a great way to put pressure on those senators or representatives that may be waffling and thinking of complying with the Trump regime. Put that pressure on them. Another way to not necessarily contact your representatives, but get the representatives' words out there is something called phone banking. Equality Florida uses it a lot. They called before a big election saying, did you know that this person did this and this and this? And are you aware of what's going on? And it's a way to raise awareness before critical votes. So if you're a good talker on the phone banking you could do from your couch. All right, emails. Emails aren't as effective, but they're still public record. They still got to get counted. A lot of organizations, the ACLU resist bot, text resist to 50409, and you'll be signed up. It's a text-based service. You can find protests. You can sign petitions. It's a great way to send and it sends basically, I put what my Ms., Mr., or whatever, and then you fill in your information once, and then it sends a set letter. You can change the letter if you want it, or you could just send it as is and let your voice be heard that way. And then one of the best ways to get your point across is lobbying in person. Right now, Congress is on a break. Most senators, well, if they're a Republican senator, they're probably not going to meet with you. But representatives and senators will meet with constituents. You just got to make an appointment. And you have 5 or 10, 15 minutes maybe to make your voice heard. Make it heard. Or if you live close to your state capital, I live about 8 hours away from mine, and I go up once a year to lobby with Equality Florida. I make that drive because it's that important to me.
Comment in the chat that voter registration drives at kink events can help.
We're going to get to that in a minute. Thank you very much. Voter registration drives at kink events. That's an excellent, excellent suggestion. All right, the next way we can protest. How many people use social media? Yes, I'm sure all of us do at some point or another. Well, make your voice heard on social media. You know the trends where you lip sync to like a song or a speech or something? Do it to a speech that matters. Lip sync to a speech by Gavin Newsom saying, when you poke the bear, we're going to punch back. You know what? Do a lip sync to that and post it. I would love to see stuff like that go viral. One of the things, if you are following social media and your posts do start to, if your algorithm starts giving you political posts, stop following things that are triggering. For example, I don't follow HuffPost or Occupy Democrats. They are way too triggering. I think they are clickbait and they have good content, but it's too clickbaity for me. It's too, the sky is falling, and I don't need that. I need reality. I read news sources. I read Substack, is where I get most of my news from. I know I see some of you nodding. Substack is a great app for a clearinghouse, really, for progressive voices. Now, voices I would recommend. Robert Reich, one of my favorites, by the way. Heather Cox Richardson, David Hogg, Jess Craven, Jasmine Crockett. She is on fire. If you've never heard this woman speak, go do yourself a favor and see how she just destroyed a GOP senator and his Christian values. It is worth the watch. Ezra Klein of Indivisible and Cory Booker. Those are some good ones to follow. You can also sign up, like I said before, for the Lace Up and Learn newsletter. If you want to be involved or informed, but you don't want to go through the piles and piles of news that I go through, let me condense it for you, and I'll give you short little paragraphs so you don't have to be overwhelmed. All right, the next thing we can do, and this is where we need to show up, engage in elections. One of the things, there are going to be at least 34 very competitive House races in 2026. Adopt a House race. Pick one. Pick one that's in your district or not. Learn about it. Follow the mailing list for the person you want to support, the person you don't want to support. It's just as important to see what the opposition is saying. Follow it. Maybe donate $5, $10, what you can. Follow a House race this year because it is going to be super important to get those House seats. Volunteer. You can join Vote Save America or Activate America that helps win progressive races. Poll work. Volunteer to be a poll worker. You know, your boss might give you a day off to be a poll worker. Volunteer this way to make sure elections are fair and free. Now, this is one of the, I think that anybody that is concerned and wants to be involved can get behind. Focus on your personal core issue. For example, my personal core issues are LGBTQ plus rights. So I'm very involved with Equality Florida, who fights for LGBTQ plus rights in Florida. I read a lot. I follow Erin in the Morning for trans issues. She is one of the best voices out there for trans issues in the United States. Support organizations like the Center for Reproductive Rights, for Reproductive Freedom, the ACLU. They have a monthly immigration call on immigration justice. They have one for Florida and a national one. Join the calls if immigration is important to you. The other thing, like I said, signing up for mailing lists for causes you believe in. Sierra Club, if you are an concerned about environmental issues, the Sierra Club puts out a real good newsletter about that. Take It Back, Move On, ACLU. ACLU is one of my go-tos. They have some of the best stuff out there, and they have boots on the ground fighting the good fight every day, day in, day out. Another one that all of us can participate in a small or large way are economic boycotts. Hold on one sec. So economic boycotts, you want to choose your target. And yes, I use Target on purpose. If you hadn't heard, Target's CEO stepped down after Target's sales fell 21%. Yeah, right, he stepped down. I think he got fired. But they let him out gracefully because he went full MAGA, reversed their DEI policies, and the boycott of Target worked. Their sales are down ridiculously. They're going to be down the rest of the year. And that's what we want to see from an economic boycott. That is power of the people. Another one that was very successful, the Tesla takedown movement. Guess who's not in the government anymore? Elon Musk. Because Tesla lost billions and billions of dollars in value. So, and that was in large part because of the Tesla takedowns. So good on you, people that were, I tried to go to one, they canceled it because a car had run into a Tesla protest in Florida, and they canceled the one in Boca that I was going to go to. So I never got to go to a Tesla takedown. Let others know what you are boycotting. For example, my friends don't send me Amazon links anymore. They know I don't shop at Amazon. I don't do Audible. I don't do Prime. I don't do any of that. Now, can I totally boycott Amazon? No, they control about 80% of the web cloud services. So I can't, but I try my best. I resist Amazon. I don't boycott because I can only resist at this point. Which is really telling, and one of the reasons Amazon needs to be a subject of an antitrust legislation and broken up into pieces. The other one that is a personal boycott I don't shop at Claire's, the little jewelry store in the mall, because they pierce with the piercing gun. For those who don't know me, my name is Ms. Pierced on FetLife and most social media. And piercing for me, my permanent piercings are part of my spiritual journey, and temporary piercing is part of my fun in BDSM. So when I hear there's a store or a company that pierces with piercing guns, I don't shop there because you know what? It is a very unhygienic way to pierce. Go to a professional piercer and get a hygienic piercing. Not a lot of people will boycott this. It's not as important to them, but that's my personal boycott. I know a lot of us in this room probably don't eat at Chick-fil-A because of their policies and where they give money to. That's another boycott. It may not be as big as the Tesla takedown or the Target boycott, but it makes a difference. And you know what? It makes me better able to sleep at night. Non-cooperation. We're going to talk about this one quite a bit. Remember how I talked about if you disrupt any of those levels of the pillar, you are going to make a change. You're going to give them incentive to make the change. Well, non-cooperation is the stick you poke them with, okay? Or you don't poke them with, you're non-cooperating. Now, enough non-cooperation will cause a pillar to defect completely. They will, and once the tide turns, that business, that agency will start defecting because they're seeing they're going to lose customers, they're going to lose workers, they're going to lose talent. So, if you have, as a pillar, become unreliable to the authoritarian regime's policies, individuals, groups, pillars, and entire societies can engage in this non-cooperation to defect from a pillar that holds up the authoritarian regime. All right, next slide, Mako. Now, this is a few examples of non-cooperation. Dodgers block ICE agents from entering stadium in Los Angeles, team says. Avelo Airlines, who works out of Miami and Fort Lauderdale, by the way, so groundavelo.com, because they deport people to countries that they're not from, and they do it for money. So they are complicit. Avelo Airlines faces backlash for aiding Trump's deportation campaign. And there are protests going on. In fact, Avelo pulled out of the whole West Coast because of the boycott and the protests. And then small federal agency blocks Doge employees from entering its building. We heard that a lot when Doge was doing all this horrible stuff where they were stopping people from coming in. And that is non-cooperation. All right, next slide. Now, there are three main types of non-cooperation: social, political, and economic. So social non-cooperation, how many people, I didn't watch it, but I saw clips of Trump's big military parade. Those military personnel did not want to be there. And if you looked at their faces, they were not proud to be there. They were doing it because they had to. That was their form of non-cooperation. They weren't walking in step. I mean, if you're in the military, I was in band and I knew how to walk in step. If you're in the military, you know how to march. You know how to keep in step. They weren't keeping in step. That was non-cooperation. Local neighborhoods offering sanctuary to immigrants, or that are letting people know when ICE is in their neighborhood. Stop ICE is an app that you can use to report ICE activity in real time. I have seen video after video of people surrounding ICE saying, "You're not welcome here, go home, go home." And ICE got up and left. So non-cooperation works. Businesses that put up signs that say immigrants welcome here or no ICE, that is non-cooperation and a form of protest. Political non-cooperations. School districts refusing to get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or refusing to get rid of trans kids in sports. Those are political non-cooperation. Pressuring local governments or businesses not to house or support ICE activity. In California, they were outside of hotels that had ICE in them, playing mariachi music till the whole night to make it impossible to sleep and to make hotels not want to have ICE agents staying there. There was one person that just followed ICE agents around till they found where they were going and then reported, and that's where the protests moved. Yes.
There's somebody in California doing that, and I think it was originally, I don't know what they said, it was like a taco theme thing, and now the whole mission of this website is to track ice activity and put updates on their webpage.
Yeah, so there is a web page that somebody here in the Eagle was saying that they track ice activity and they put it on their website in real time. So things like that, these are grassroots. These are not big companies doing this. These are grassroots. Somebody said, I see a problem, I can help, and they do. Giving encouragement for civil servants who are refusing to carry out illegal or immoral orders. There are helplines and hotlines, I post them regularly on my socials, for National Guard and military can call and say, I don't know what to do, I've been given an illegal order, I need help. So there are hotlines and resources out there for military that they can non-cooperate and not be court-martialed. And then economic non-cooperation. Boycotts of Target, Dollar General for price gouging of poor people. A Velo boycott that we talked about. The Tesla takedowns. Economic non-cooperation is boycotts. All right, next slide, please, Mako. All right, now we're going to talk about the ACLU's model of protest. It's called the Disrupt, Delegitimize, Defect model. So let's talk about what each of these words means. So we disrupt or interrupt the authoritarian agendas, and we do this through all these methods of protest we're talking about. All of them are valid and valuable in disrupting the authoritarian regime's purpose and progress. Then we're going to delegitimize the authoritarian regime. We're going to make authoritarian actions toxic by exposing abuses and by making fun of them. Like we were talking about earlier, one of the best things to do is to make fun of them, because you know what? When you got a little South Park president running around with a little tiny pee-pee and being fucked in the ass by Satan, it's going to make people laugh, and he is going to lose some of his power, because laughter diminishes people when you're making fun of them. And it's not anything that's going to hurt him. I don't think he cries at night over it, but you know what? It's going to hurt his followers. And they're going to be like, wow, and they're going to see that over and over and over again. And that is going to make them realize, maybe I should take another look at this. It's one of the ways we want to delegitimize, all right? We also do things like economic boycotts and protests so that it makes it too expensive for companies and individuals to maintain the authoritarian regime. We are going to encourage defections. Now, we want to, like I said, we want to make these abuses too costly to sustain. Economic boycotts, companies that support the regime. There was one gentleman, he started leavingmaga.com. He was a podcast bro that was super MAGA. And one day he woke up and he realized, this is not what I voted for. This is not what I wanted. And he left. But you got to understand, the people that are MAGA, they are in a cult. And the cult leader is part of their identity. You cannot come at them with facts and figures. You cannot come at them, hold on one sec, you cannot come at them with facts and figures, because they're going to say, this is part of my identity. They're not going to think that, but it's part of their identity. And they're like, you're just lying. You're just making stuff up. We have to come at them with understanding. I did a de-escalation training, and one of the things you do is empathetic listening. People that are screaming in your face, tell me why you feel that way. Well, gosh, that I can understand. I would feel that way if my president was abusing kids. And I'm not talking about Trump. They're saying Biden did, because of course it's never Trump, it's always Biden or Obama. So make sure that you don't just yell at people, because that didn't get you anywhere. If you have the opportunity, listen to them. Empathize. Don't just say stuff you don't believe in. But if that was happening, I'd feel that way too, if you really would. Because it calms them down. Number one, you're de-escalating. Number two, try to find common ground with them. Try to say, I think we feel the same about our democracy. I always worry about my freedoms. They might be worried about the Second Amendment. I'm worried about the First. So, we got to encourage defections. When the MAGA people raise up and realize when they defect, we can't just say, see, I told you so. That doesn't help anybody. Welcome them and say, I get it. I understand. And we're here. We can help you. And that's why this guy starting leaving MAGA.com was so great, because he knows what they want going through. Because they're not just losing their cult leader, they're losing a part of their identity. And that is a harder thing to let go of. Now, in all of these actions, as in all of the actions talked about today, we must remain nonviolent. We cannot afford violence, because that's what they want. Trying to plant something in your bag and plant it on you to say you're starting violence or going to start violence, that's what they're trying to do. There are probably people that are plants that are trying to start violence. If you see violence, walk away from it. Do not engage. You have to stay nonviolent, because that's what they want, so they can respond with violence. And they can militarize or federalize the military response. And we don't want that. All right, next slide, please. Building community and resilience. Henry Winkler, the Fonz, for those of you old enough to remember Happy Days. He said, you need help, you need advice, you need wisdom, you need support, you need the joy. And we absolutely do. We have to create community. We have to come together. And right now I'm talking to the leather community, the fetish community, the kink community, my community. We need to come together. We need to create community so we can fight together. We can't do this alone. You saw, that's why I thanked all the people I thanked at the beginning. That's my team. Be part of it. Be part of the team in your area. If you want to start a Boots on the Ground chapter, I will give you all of these presentations, all of these notes. You can teach these classes. You can educate. You can teach for me. We need to do it together. Now, that's for our community. But we also need to build coalitions across progressive movements. I belong to a Unitarian Universalist fellowship. And everybody in my church knows that I'm part of the leather and kink community. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of them are on the call today. Hello. Because I know you RSVP and you're coming. So thank you. We need to build that. Talk about this to your friends, your family, your neighbors. Let them know how you feel. They might feel the same way. And you've built connection and created community. Avoid despair. They want us to feel hopeless, but our work matters. I have a little plaque on my kitchen wall. It says, you make a difference every day. And I try to live up to that plaque every day. I try to do something every day. If it's making calls on 5 calls, working on a class, calling a friend, making dinner plans, those are all things that I'm doing that are creating my connection and my community. Let our allies know we support them. Harvard did a big they weren't going to kowtow to Trump and everything. They've been talking to the Trump administration. Let them know we support Harvard saying no to the Trump regime. We have to support our allies, or else they're going to think it's easier to be part of the pillars of support of this authoritarian regime. Let's make them know, no, that is not what is good for you or for America. Practice self-care. This is a big one. How many people have ever sung in a choir? Has anybody ever sung in a choir? Somebody has, thank you. When you sing in a choir, you can't hold a note for the whole song. It's impossible. However, when you need to take a breath, the rest of the choir keeps singing and nobody can tell you're taking a breath. That's what activist work is like. Like yesterday, I was supposed to go to a protest. I needed a self-care day. I didn't even go to Wolf, Women of Leather, Florida last night. I called up my friend. I said, I need to take a me day because I'm having, the class tonight and I need to take some time for myself. And I try never to miss Wolf, but I took time for myself. And I spent the day doing laundry and cleaning out my dungeon. So it was a fun day. So take time, find joy, find connection. All right, next slide. All right, now this is another activity we're going to do. I would love to hear one hope for democracy and one support you need, such as a protest buddy or a news friend or a news source. Let's start with, what is one hope for democracy that you have? What are you hoping? I'll tell you mine. I hope we still have a democracy. That is my hope. And that's why I do this work. I just read The Kite Runner. If you've never read this book, it broke a part of my soul off and took it with it. It's in Afghanistan and then the Russians invaded and then the family moves to California and I saw, and then the guy came back later during the Iraq war and the Afghanistan war, and the country was decimated. And I don't want to see something like that happen in America. And it very easily could, because they thought the Taliban was going to be their saving grace, and they made it even worse. And we are in the Taliban era right now in America. Yes?
So Roger says, hope that more people get involved, that people stop being apathetic. We have Daddy Zulu.
Hold on. So hope that people get involved and people stop being apathetic. That is one hope.
Yeah, and that civil rights are protected. Support would be having those at my side to walk with me.
All right, so civil rights would be protected, absolutely, and support would be having somebody to walk alongside me. I would love a protest buddy, personally. I go to most alone, but thank God I'm an extrovert. I make friends. And that's how I got some of these signs. People just gave me signs. I'm like, great, I'll use them. And I love talking to people and seeing why they're out there. So support in terms of somebody to walk and march along with you, yes.
So I would like to see more of a focus on, from in the U.S., primary school, on critical thinking. How to, take information that you're given and assess whether it's accurate, what are the sources that's giving you that information.
So absolutely. So what she said was she would like to see more support in primary school for critical thinking skills, how to know when the truth is there and how to know you're being scammed, how to know how to vet your sources, know what the scientific method is. All of these things that we learned in elementary and middle school and high school are not being taught, or they're not being retained. And in today's world of AI and deep fakes and social media, those are important skills our kids need to have. Good one. Anything else from online?
Got here something about the sociologist Arthur Schlesinger has observed that American history moves in these pendulum swings between right and left. Left for about 65 years, hard backswing right for a short time, and then yet a further left for another 65. We need to stick together, and with hope, we'll head further left for a long time again.
Yeah, and what she was saying, or he was saying, they were saying, was that a sociologist said that we go through a cycle where it's 65 years of progressive left, and then we have a hard right backlash, which is what we're in right now, and then the progressives rise up again, and we push the scale further to the left. And if you look at history, if you look at when the civil rights movement was happening in the 60s, it was a time of great social moving forward. But look at how far we've come since then to now. Now we're getting all those rights taken away again. We got to go back there. So we're getting close on time. So do we have anything else online? No. Okay, we're going to go forward. All right. So next slide, Mako. All right. This is not normal, and we are not powerless. Okay? I encourage everybody on this call right now. Do one action this week. That's all. One. You don't have to do more. I suggest downloading the 5 Calls app. Sign up for ResistBot. Text resist to 50409. Follow the prompts. Very easy to set it up. Join a Zoom training. This is your one action if you want it to be. You joined a Zoom training. Follow an inspirational leader online. Do one thing that's for the cause. That's all I want you to do. And as I said, and I'm going to say it again, with 3.5% of the population, we can protect democracy. Your voice, your actions, your solidarity are unstoppable. Next slide. Oh, that was that one. Next slide. All right, we're going to end with something my Unitarian Universalist Fellowship does. It's a call and response. We're going to sing it 3 times. Feel free to join in at home or here in the Eagle. All right, let's all take a deep breath. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. All right, now thank you everybody for attending today. Last slide, Mako. If you have any questions, I'm going to stay on the Zoom for a little bit. I just wanted to get the video I'm taking closed off, but I'm happy to answer questions. If anybody has them, feel free to put them in the chat. Thank you.